page or via public comment at santaclaraca.gov, and the comments will be read into the record. So let's move on to the council agenda. Next, we have roll call continuances. Continuances, exceptions, and reconsiderations. I want to note for the record that we will not be having a closed session meeting this evening. So that closed session is canceled. Is there any other continuances, exceptions, or reconsiderations from council or any member of the public? Do you see anything, Assistant City Clerk?
Madam Mayor, we have a hand up from Bob O'Keefe.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. No, if it's for this or the next public presentations, but go ahead, Bob.
No, it's just to begin this meeting, Mayor. Thank you. Bob O'Keefe, resident of the city of Santa Clara. I'm concerned why we're still having these meetings virtual and not in public. At the beginning of the pandemic, the governor signed some executive orders that allowed for telephonic meetings to happen. All those orders expired on September 30th. Last Wednesday, the governor signed Assembly Bill 361 that would allow these types of meetings to continue, but only under if certain circumstances were met. And the first one is that the legislative body has determined, as a result of the emergency, meetings in person presents imminent risk to health and safety of the attendees. That has not happened. The city of Santa Clara has never determined that at this moment there is an imminent risk to the attendees. Secondly, the legislative body is meeting to determine whether, as a result of the emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health of the attendees again. There is no imminent risk to the attendees about meeting in public. Other cities are doing it. And lastly, and probably the most important one, state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. I just checked the city, the county, and the state websites. There are no recommended or imposed social distancing measures in place as of today. If the city had one, why is city meetings exempt and other city properties such as Levi Stadium is not? I am very concerned that we're not having these meetings in public. We're not having our public officials together to discuss these issues. And I'd like to know why. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hold on a second. For some reason, I got all these things on my screen. Just a second. Okay. All right, that's a good question. A lot of people are asking that, and we're going to have to refer that to the next meeting. Maybe we will be in public. I also want to meet in public. I know other councils are, and I'm not sure why we're not yet. I think we're following what's happening with the county, but I'm hoping it's going to be very, very soon, and we should be reporting on that very soon. But I also want to come back to public very, very, very badly. So is there any other exceptions, continuations, or reconsiderations? If not, I'm going to move on to public presentations. Do we have any member of the public that would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda this evening? Assistant City Clerk, do you see anyone?
I don't see anyone, and I have not received any written requests.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to the purpose of our meeting this evening. We have two items. The first one is interview and action on one appointment to fill one partial term ending June 30th, 2023 to the Senior Advisory Commission. And I know we had two applicants, and both of them were on our eligibility list. We had someone resign from the commission. And it's my understanding, City Clerk, that one of them has withdrawn. So we might just have one interview. City Clerk, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you so you can explain our process as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you were correct. We are here to fill one partial term ending June 30th, 2023. And this was due to a resignation on the Senior Advisory Commission. And with that eligibility list which was established back in May. You had approved and voted to bring back 2 folks over to be re-interviewed. That would be Mr. Jim Hohenschelt and Suresh Lokai. Mr. Suresh Lokai withdrew as of yesterday evening. So that would leave us with Jim Hohenschelt being interviewed this evening. I don't see him on our attendee side as of yet. I can give him a call real quick to get him on the call. But with that being said, I'd also like to mention that we have the Historical and Landmarks Commission that will follow, and that's to fill 1 partial term ending June 30th, 2025. We had 2 applicants that withdrew. Lisa Goulet Ma withdrew as of this morning, and there was an Alan Weisberger who also withdrew. So you have 4 individuals who will be interviewing this evening. They have all been informed that they will have 3 minutes to give an introduction of themselves. Interview questions were provided to them, and then they have 1 minute closing comments at the end. I'd also like to just mention that there was the attachment for the voting guidelines, and I inadvertently did not update that reflects what we do when we interview in person, which is section 2, that the meetings are held here at City Council, at City Hall, and that interviews are held in a less formal for other boards and commissions other than Planning Commission. But this reflects what we do during in-person. And so I just want to clarify that as we're doing these virtual meetings, this is all an open process and open to the public as well as before the full council. So I'll.
Okay, can I ask you a question? I just wanted for clarification that the for the HLC, Historical and Landmarks Commission,
Yes.
that this is for a position we have not interviewed before. There are no this is brand new. None of these people, this is not an eligibility list, correct?
Correct. We interviewed back in May 27th. There were 2 applicants. You appointed 1. Ms. Kirby was appointed. The other applicant was not appointed, and you directed me to open a recruitment. And so this recruitment was open for 6 full weeks.
Okay. So we have 4 applicants there, and then I have the list of questions that they were provided. So
yes, correct.
Okay, so we have one of our eligibility list applicants for the Senior Advisory Commission is left. Was he aware that he needed to still interview this evening?
Yes, he was aware. He was, I had told him he'd be the first one up as soon as we opened the meeting.
Okay.
I did ask all applicants to log on at least 15 minutes before their interview as time slot. And so far, I don't see anyone on that side, so on the attendee side. So I don't know if you want to give me, maybe call a 5-minute recess and I can just...
let me ask Councilmember Becker, do you have your hands up?
I was just curious about the process of if it just comes down to 1 applicant and it was a, I guess, since we had the eligibility list, or I mean, and if the person doesn't show up, are we still able to make motions to appoint the person? Because I mean, I remember the interview we had back in, I think it was May.
I would say yes, but because they were on the eligibility list, we put them there.
Just want to make sure.
So let's give 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, and just as a refresher, I do recall that both of these gentlemen, I think tied, they had the vote that was tied. So that's why you brought them both back. Mr. Hohenschelt, I mean, I don't know what's holding him up right now, but he was aware and was still very interested in serving on the Senior Advisory Commission.
Okay.
So if you give me about 5 minutes and I can.
Okay, 5-minute break, everyone. Okay. 5:46, 5:51. 5 minutes, we'll all be back.
did leave
Okay.
him a message, Mr. James Hohenschelt, and he did not respond, but I left him a message.
Okay.
Hoping everything's okay, but I do have some folks from the HLC online if you want to start with
Well,
them.
let's talk about Mr. Hohenschalt, because we did interview him. We did like him. We did put him on our eligibility list. So I'm just wondering the council if we could just appoint him. I would recommend we appoint him. Councilmember Becker?
I liked him too, and I agree with the mayor,
Yeah.
so I will make a motion to appoint him, and I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments from the city council on that? And so that's for the term expiring. City clerk, help us.
June 30th, 2023.
Okay, if we could put that in the motion as well.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Park?
Yeah, I just want to make clear that I know we have a list of people that we've interviewed before, but I think this is one of the reasons why reaching out to new candidates and always getting a new people to apply is a good thing. I mean, it is possible that one or all of the candidates that were on the shortened list would not make a meeting or would withdraw their names. And I feel that this is one of the reasons that it would be really nice if we made it very clear that even though there's a list, that we will take new applications, and we encourage people to show up, even if they're not called to do an interview during the specific meeting that they show up for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes,
Madam Mayor, may I respond to that?
yes, go ahead.
So I reached out to the folks that were on the list, and they were still interested and were very interested in being here tonight. Unfortunately, someone had an emergency and couldn't be here anymore. With that being said, we've had 3 resignations within the last interviews that took place in May. And if we would have had to open 3 different recruitments at the same time, it would have been very overwhelming to be managing 3 ongoing, because the resignations did not all occur at the same time. If both of these folks would have not been interested, we would have then, of course, opened up a recruitment. So I just wanted to put that out there, like explain the reason behind that.
Thank you. Thank you, Nora. All right, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, Mayor, I'm
Oh, that's okay. I caught you off guard.
multitasking here. Sorry. So a motion made by Councilmember Becker, seconded by,
Raj.
thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, Councilmember Watanabe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shahal,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Jane,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes. And that passes unanimously. So congratulations to James Hohenschelt for his new position on the Senior Advisory Commission. Okay, wonderful. All right, next we have our applicants for the interviews and one appointment to fill one partial term ending June 30th, 2025 to the Historical and Landmarks Commission. And so that partial term to 2025, then the applicant would be eligible for potentially 2 more 4-year terms. So this will be a long appointment on the HLC. So we do have our questions. So Assistant City Clerk, would you like to call who would be available for the first interview?
Yes, Cecily Cox is our first interviewee, and we'll promote her over.
Okay, thank you.
Hello there.
Hi, Cecily. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Oh, very good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and thank you for applying to the Historical and Landmark Commission. So we're going to give you about 3 minutes to give us an opening statement. Tell us all you can about yourself and why you applied for this position. We have 4 questions to ask you, and I believe you may have gotten them ahead of time. So I hope you did, and then we'll give you a minute for a closing statement. So whenever you're ready, we're ready to hear you.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to meet you and to speak with the council today. My name is Cecily Cox. So I first moved to Santa Clara, California to attend the university, Santa Clara University. Upon arriving, I was just immediately allured by the rich history, the architectural structures, the preservation, and the mosaic amenities that the city has to offer its residents. So currently, I am also taking night classes at Santa Clara University while teaching during the day. So I work as a 2nd grade teacher here in Santa Clara at St. Clair School. And I've been a huge beneficiary of community services through things at the library and using historic resources to really engage my students in the city and what the city has to offer, and teaching them to be good civil servants. I have a very long-standing interest in buildings, development, and public service. I've understood for a long time how buildings and landmarks can influence the lives of the individuals that live and utilize the facilities. So in college, I was actually involved in several organizations, including the student government, where a principal focus of mine involved working with the facilities department to ensure that proper protocol and funding was allocated for facilities on the university campus to have what it needed to accommodate those who are physically challenged. So that was making sure that we had ramps, elevators, lowered amenities, braille displays, and making sure that every person, every student was able and willing to have the ability to use the excuse me, the resources that the university provided. So it was an incredible opportunity to be a part of changing the experience of so many different students on my campus. So I love being involved in helping communities get the resources that they need in order to thrive. After graduating college, I worked a little bit in politics, and that's really where I learned how much government and public service directly can influence the lives of individuals. It would be just such an honor to serve on this commission. I think I'm young and motivated and innovative and interested in understanding and learning what makes something significant to different cultures and different types of people. And I would love to help recommend proposals that would help these historic landmarks have what they need in order to provide the history and knowledge that they should to the people who live here. So thank you again so much for hearing my story. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to learn as much as I possibly can. I'm excited to give back to my community that has given so much to me.
Thank you. Excellent. Excellent, Cecily. All right. Now I'm going to just read the questions that you've already been provided. So the first one is, what is your favorite story or anecdote about Santa Clara's history?
Yeah, so one of the first things I learned about the history of Santa Clara concerns the university. So originally Santa Clara College, which was established in 1851, where I'm currently studying. But I'm very proud to realize that it's the oldest operating institution of higher learning in the state of California. And in addition, Santa Clara University also became the first co-educational Catholic university in California, when it admitted 75 women in 1961. So as a woman, I'm very proud and very honored to be a part of a university that was a pioneer in social change and equality in this country. So.
Fabulous. And you certainly are continuing your career close to the university, right across the street. So many of our homes and properties in Santa Clara are over 50 years old. How will you distinguish between what is considered historical and what is just plain old?
Yes, well, I think the criteria for local significance, which was adopted by Santa Clara County, provides a good outline for determining historical significance. So, you know, in addition to being over 50 years, I think a lot of research and looking at how or who or how this landmark is historically significant, how has it impacted cultures, how has it changed communities. I think looking at the people that this structure has influenced at the time that it was built and of use is important, and also how it could influence and how it could educate the current community is something that we should take into consideration. But I think it really just depends, and a lot of research and studying needs to be done in order to see how this particular building or landmark impacted the community that it was built to serve.
Very good, thank you. Do you have any zoning code updates you'd like to see to better preserve historic properties?
So I'm very new to zoning, I will be honest with you, but I think the current historic preservation zoning ordinance, I think it's 18106 of the city code, is doing a good job at setting forth procedures for identifying and protecting the historic properties. I have a lot of questions and a lot more research that I would like to do on zoning and on what qualifies a certain place or vicinity to be to violate zoning, or to, you know, how tall can it be, how what can it be made out of, and do these historic buildings have the resources in order to follow the rules. So I'd really like to just do more research and see if there was anything in place to support maybe some struggling landmarks that maybe are having difficulty with zoning. Yeah, that's really something where I think I could learn a lot more, and I would like to do more research and learn a lot more about what is allowed and what isn't allowed in the city of Santa Clara.
Good, fair answer. And lastly, last question, then I'm going to go to the council to see if anybody has any additional questions to our prepared questions. Do you feel that some old motels on El Camino Real have historical significance? And what other building structures do you feel have a historical significance?
Right. I don't think we can evaluate a general category like old motels without specific information about each particular property. Then I think we need to apply the criteria set out in the historic preservation zoning ordinance to see if each property meets the requirements for placement on the HRI. So I, personally, do not favor placing any properties on the HRI merely because they're old.
Mhm.
I think when we put a property on the HRI, we limit the productive uses that property can be put into. So that should only happen if we're sure that property really has architectural, historical, or cultural significance. And I just don't know enough about each individual motel in order to to say whether or not I think that that place has the significance that it needs. So.
Okay, great. I see a couple of hands up from my council members. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Cecily, for applying. Great answers. I do, listening to you talk about you're going to school and you're teaching at St. Clair's, which is another iconic place in Santa Clara. But also, I just wanted to I'm sure you've checked when the commission meets. Would that impact your schedule in any way?
So no, and I've actually spoken to both of my professors. If I have a conflict, luckily my classes are not on the days that the commission meets, but if there ever was a conflict, I've spoken to them in advance and they've said that I could attend. They give 2 sections of their classes, one on Monday, or it's either Monday or Wednesday and Friday. So if I'm not able to go to one, they have said that I can go to a different one. And they've also given me an option of zooming into my classes if I needed to miss anything. So I'm definitely aware of the time commitment and the amount of work that would go into serving on this commission. And I know that I have a lot on my plate, but I'm very organized. I write everything down. I cross everything off. I have a calendar where I write everything down and one that's backed up on Google. So I'm very, very, I know it will be a challenge, but I believe I have the resources and tools to ask for help and to be able to manage everything as long as I stay organized.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good answer. Councilmember Becker.
Mayor, thank you, Cecily, for applying. It's a pleasure to have you here. My question for you is, kind of related to what Councilmember Watanabe just asked you about, time commitment. Seeing that this is till 2025, is this a position that you're willing to give the long-term commitment till the year of 2025? Because we've been having a lot of issues where a lot of resignations come in and we have to have a bunch of interviews to fill. And we would really like somebody that is very dedicated into this historical significance of the city of Santa Clara. And a lot of your answers, I think, hit on that point. So my curiosity is about the long-term commitment to 2025.
Yes. So I would like to say I whatever I commit myself to, I think I've learned over the years as I've gotten older, I take very seriously. And if I say I'm going to do something, I like to follow through and I like to keep my word. I do understand that, life has extenuating circumstances at times and things come up, but this is so important to me, I think, serving on this committee and having a voice as a young person, as a student, as it's so much more, it's so important, and it's something that I would value and make sure that I am making a priority in my life. And my credential program actually ends in 2025, and I do plan to stay in Santa Clara County for the remainder of that time. I've really found a home here at St. Clair. I've really found a place where I can thrive and a place where I feel like I am making a difference. And I think that I'm committed to staying here. I'm committed to showing up every day for the children of this county, and I think it would help me serve my students even a step further if they knew that their teacher was a part of their city, was a part of government, was a public servant. And not only would it help influence the next generation of public leaders, I think, and excite the next generation of public leaders, it would also show my students that people just like them, people that they know, can commit to something and make real change. And I don't think that I would quit because I could not face my students and say, even after I told you all of this and after, I worked so hard and we were so excited, that I quit. I could not face my students and tell them that. So if I commit to this, I would do this not just for myself, not just for the city or the historical commission, but also for my students, to show them that they too can make a difference if they just stay committed and they show up every day and they try hard.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other hands, so let's go to your 1-minute closing statement. Cecily, if there's anything you'd like to tell us.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting here and listening to my interview. It has been such a pleasure to speak with you and tell you a little bit more about myself. I think I said before, it would be an honor to serve my community, my students, my city, and give back a little bit of what I've been given here as a resident. I think if you are inclined to give this position to someone who is very familiar in, zoning and our architecture and things like that, I don't think I am your candidate. But if you do favor a candidate who will bring energy, vitality, diversity, and can be active and mentally do the work and be committed, and excited and engaging young minds in order to get involved with the city, I think that I would hope that you consider my application.
Thank you so much. And thank you. It was an excellent interview. We appreciate it. If you want to just hang in with us, we're going to be making a decision right after all of our interviews this evening.
Well, thank you so much.
And if you decide not to, our city clerk's office can notify you of the results tomorrow. Okay.
I appreciate you very much. I will be here.
Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. City clerk.
Yes, we're moving Jim Kraft over.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to unmute myself here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Jim. Jim or James, how would you like to be called?
Jim is fine.
All right, Jim, welcome and thank you for applying to the Historical and Landmarks Commission. I think you may have heard the drill here. We're going to give you 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you want to be a member of this commission. And then we have some prepared questions that I hope we gave you ahead of time. And then council may have some additional questions after that. And then we'll allow you a 1-minute closing statement. So whenever you're ready, Jim, we'd love to hear about you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this interview. And it's my pleasure to speak to the council. I have been living in Santa Clara for 20 years, but I left about 10 years ago and spent 10 years in Orlando, Florida. I had a job transfer and I ended up coming back. So it's been 10 years recently, but altogether about 20 years. A lot changed in those 10 years I was gone, but there was a lot of things that stayed the same. And one of the things that always impressed me, the Santa Clara University and the historical area around the downtown, although that did change quite a bit, but a lot of the older buildings seem to have been preserved very well, and so I think that's a justifiable source of pride for the city to be so adept at being able to maintain the historical significance of some of the older buildings and such. But as far as what's drawing me to apply, I've been an engineer for going on 30 years, and I'm going to be retiring in about 6 months. And one of the gentlemen I was working with recently, I work at an aerospace company. I've worked at a couple of different ones, but currently is with Lockheed Martin in Sunnyvale. And a gentleman named Mike Walkie, who I worked with, very nice guy, and enjoyed working with him very much. And he recently retired as well. And I believe he's the heads up the Police Athletic League, the PAL organization. And so I kind of talked to him about doing some volunteer work and with the city. And so we, and then this opportunity came up. I saw it and I said, well, why not? It's something to kind of keep me busy after I retire, and also a source of accomplishment of doing something that's very worthwhile. So because of those two things, I decided to come in and see what was available and see if there was any interest in having me join the team.
Well, thank you. We're happy you applied. So let's go now to the questions that I hope we had provided you ahead of time. I hope we did.
Yes, you did.
So what is your favorite story or anecdote about Santa Clara's history?
Well, first of all, I will admit that I haven't actually prepared any answers. So a lot of this is just going to be my honest recollections and kind of off the cuff. The one thing that I did stand out was there used to be this old blues club called JJ's Blues House years ago, and that unfortunately is not around anymore. But that was a very historical place. It was kind of small, but it was a place where you had a lot of people that were interested in blues and that sort of genre of music, and so that I thought that was a very interesting place. A lot of colorful characters came and went there. Going back a little bit farther, even preceding my time here, there was a lot of historical things related to the development of the semiconductor chip and some of the early work that was done with some of the startup companies many years ago. And we used to go to a place called Wheeler's Wagon Wheel. And they used to tell the stories about people designing the circuits on the napkins in the, in the restaurant there and things of that nature. And I always thought that was very, very interesting. So there's a historical relevance to the fact that the computer industry started here. And since I've been in that field, my major is software engineering. I have a master's from National University over here in San Jose in software engineering. I've been doing that for 30 years. So I've always had kind of an interest in the history of that as well.
Oh, interesting. I do remember JJ's, that's for sure. All right. So most of our homes and properties in Santa Clara are over 50 years old. How would you distinguish between what is considered historical and what is considered just plain old?
Oh, that's a very good question. And I have to tell you, I don't have an architecture background, either through my education or through actually working. So I'd have to come up to speed on talking to different people, but I would rely on some of the expertise of the architects and maybe some of the people that have been around for a while and can relate the stories. But looking at each place individually, trying to get a feel for what is the history of it, and kind of make a judgment based on that.
Okay, very good. Do you have any zoning updates you'd like to see to better preserve historic properties here in Santa Clara?
Not really. I haven't. It's not something I've given much thought to, but again, I would have to talk to the other people on the committee and get the information from the expertise and put it together and make a judgment. But no, I don't have any. I don't have any of that offhand. No.
Yeah, it is a tough question. Yeah, it really is.
Well, again, then just not to belabor the point, but I really was looking for some place to do some volunteer work and if I can provide some assistance, but I hadn't really gone out and done a lot of research yet. If it gets to the point where I am selected, then obviously I would put in the time and the effort to go in and do that research. But I haven't really looked at the zoning issues at this point.
Okay, of course, of course. Do you feel that some motels, old motels on El Camino Real have historical significance? And what other building structures do you feel might have a historical significance in Santa Clara?
Yes, there's been I live fairly close to El Camino and Lawrence, right around in that area. And as I drive up and down El Camino, which is a very historical street, it's unfortunate that there's a lot of businesses that seem to be going out of business or they're shutting down. But there's a lot of new business coming in to replace it. And it seems like the predominantly is for housing. There seems to be a lot of, apartments and housing. And I think that's just a condition of the fact that there's a housing shortage. But unfortunately, what's happened is some of the older and businesses that have been struggling and that just haven't been able to make it, those are kind of on the downside. So we need to kind of take a look at that and see, is there some way we can maybe help to, give some assistance to the mom and pop bicycle shop, for example, or some people that are struggling in the context of the current environment that we're living in. So, at least get them back to a level where they can be, competitive and stick around.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, great. May I ask council members, if any council members have any questions? Councilmember Jane?
Yeah, thank you for applying, Jim. Have you been on a historic home tour in Santa Clara?
No.
Okay.
No, not an official one. I've obviously driven around and seen a lot of the sites because I've lived here for 20 years, but no, I haven't actually been on one.
Okay, thank you. Do you
Oh,
have a favorite historic building in Santa Clara?
Well, I like the buildings along the across from Santa Clara University. There's that stretch where there seems to be a lot of very nice, near where the police department is and the rail station and some of those old buildings along there. So I think that they have some unique architecture.
okay. Thank you. Councilmember Becker?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jim, for applying. My question to you is about long-term commitment. Would this be, knowing that this position goes until the year 2025, is this a position that you're willing to commit your time to until that long?
Yes, it is.
Great, thank you.
Good, short answer. Okay, Councilmember Park?
Yes, Mr. Kraft, thank you very much for applying. I really like your honesty. I think that sometimes you've got the engineering too honest, but at the same time, I like people that don't come into historic landmarks or historic with a lot of preconceptions. I do have a question about, you've talked about JJ's Blues Club and Wheeler's Wagon Wheel. I kind of regret that I was not there to partake of that, but is there anything that is not here anymore that you really wish you could bring back?
There is there was a couple of restaurants there, but nothing of a historical nature that I can think of that would be particularly relevant.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be historic. It's something that, it doesn't have to be historic in the in the objective sense or a historic sense, but it's something that in your life you would like to bring back.
Right. Well, I've mentioned two of them that that were probably would rank high on that list. Although the wagon wheel wasn't in Santa Clara, that was actually in Mountain View. Yeah, honestly, I'm at a loss here. I can't really think of anything.
That's okay. I was going to answer that and say youth. That's what I'd like to see come
Sure.
back. But no, thank you for that. So Jim, if you'd like to give us your 1-minute closing statement.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in the position and interested in providing some volunteer work in this community, because it's been my home for many years now, and I love the people that are here, and I think it's just a tremendous community, and it's very well run community, and I would appreciate your consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for applying. So you're welcome to stay with us. We will be making a decision. I think we're interviewing a total of 4 people. So you're number 2. We have 2 more to interview, so it shouldn't be too long. We will be making a decision, or if you're not able to stay with us, our city clerk's office will contact you tomorrow. But thank you for applying. We appreciate all your answers and you taking the time to do this and your interest. Okay, City Clerk, Assistant City Clerk.
And Kratz is next. He's being moved over.
Okay. Ken?
Yeah, my computer connection is not very good, but that's the best I can do under the circumstances. I've got kind of a low speed over here on the other edge of town. So if you can bear with me, it sounds like you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Oh, I'm hearing an echo of myself, but we can hear you, Ken. So why don't we start with, first of all, thank you for applying for the Historical and Landmarks Commission. Why don't we start by you giving us a up to 3-minute introduction about yourself and why you applied for this commission. And then we have some questions to ask you that you were given ahead of time, and then some additional council questions. So whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear about you. Go ahead, Ken.
Sure, okay. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and City Council members. My name is Ken Kratz, and I am interested in serving on the Historical and Landmarks Commission. I've lived in the city for 44 years. I want to become a member of the Historical and Landmarks Commission in order to advise the City Council on matters pertaining to the marking and preservation of historical places and landmarks, on naming and renaming streets and museums, and on the establishment of new museums. I know there's a lot to learn. I'm willing to do the necessary work to become an effective commissioner. The commission's responsibilities are extensive according to the historical ordinance. They are to promote the identification, protection, enhancement, and perpetuation of buildings, structures, and properties within the city that reflect special elements of the city's social, economic, historical, architectural, engineering, archaeological, cultural, natural, or aesthetic heritage. Though I'm not a licensed architect, my education and work background, as well as my activities, make me well suited to serve on the commission. I received an undergraduate degree in architecture, an AB in environmental design with a major in architecture from UC Berkeley. The degree required I successfully pass courses in architectural history by Professor Stephen Cabriner. My work experience will also help me execute the duties of a commissioner. While employed at the City of Santa Clara, 26 years as a public works inspector and 4 as an engineering aide, I inspected repairs to 2 historic homes in the city, one being the Harris Last House. During my career, I also inspected the construction of reinforced concrete buildings, steel buildings, and wood frame buildings, in addition to inspecting civil engineering works, including storm drains, sanitary sewers, underground utilities, pump stations, street pavements, sidewalks, traffic signals. I also helped in the protection of clay soils found in a city street during an excavation for a new utility that included historic evidence of clay firing used in the manufacturing process for building components for the historic Mission Santa Clara. I've been active in a local preservation effort. I successfully registered Pomeroy Green, the 78-unit mid-century modern multifamily housing complex in Santa Clara where I live, in the National Register of Historic Places. It is designated a historic district of local significance. The registration was a two-year effort on my part with little help from neighborhood residents. Completing the application required my research and documentation of the property's historic significance in 3 areas: community planning and development, architecture, and landscape architecture. My documentation included text, drawings, and photographs, and an interview with one of the original designers, Mr. Sasaki, Walker and Associates, the landscape architects and site planners. The information in the application places Pomeroy Green in our city, state, and nation's architectural history. The
Thank you,
application
Ken.
is 68.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we want to keep the whole process fair.
Good.
You might be able to finish in some of your questions. So the first one we have,
Okay.
is, what is your favorite story or anecdote about Santa Clara's history?
Yeah, my favorite story is in Santa Clara history is the remarkable career of one of our leading citizens, Franklin Hitchborn, who lived at 1091 Fremont Street. He was a crusading journalist, reformer, and political writer of national fame who exposed graft and corruption in California. He also advocated for public ownership of public utilities.
Yeah, we like that. Okay. Many of our homes or properties in Santa Clara are over 50 years old. How will you distinguish between what is considered historical and what is considered just plain old?
Yeah, that's a good question. The city adopted a historical ordinance, chapter 18.106, that mentions the general criteria for historic consideration are: the resource must be of historical or cultural significance, architectural significance, geographic significance, or archaeological significance. More specific criteria are found in the city's historic preservation and resource inventory found in the general plan, appendix section 8.9. The criteria are: 1, the site of or building has character, interest, integrity, and reflects the heritage and cultural development of the city, state, or nation. Number 2, the property is associated with a historical event. 3, the property is associated with an important individual or group who contributed in a significant way to the political, social, and/or cultural life of the community. 4, the property is associated with significant industrial, institutional, commercial, agricultural, or transportation activity. 5, the building's direct association with broad patterns of local history. 6, a notable historical relationship between site, building, or properties and its immediate environment. Additionally, the city of Santa Clara is enrolled in the state certified local government program of the state of California's Office of Historic Preservation. They provide guidelines for surveying and evaluating potential historic resources, an activity required of the CLGs by State Office of Historic Preservation. The State Office of Historic Preservation advises that CLGs to use the National Register, California Register criteria, and the Secretary of the Interior standards in order to evaluate potential historic resources. According to the state, those standards and procedures bring clarity to the question of what resources are significant. By following those standards and procedures, our city's CLG program will be consistent with federal and state standards and regulations. I suggest that the city consider hiring a licensed architect with several years' experience in historic preservation to advise the HLC on preservation matters and to conduct a citywide survey every few years of potentially eligible historic resources.
Thank you for that. Do you have any zoning code updates you would like to see to better preserve historic properties?
Yes, a lot of ideas are in my application. However, before I detail those ideas, I want to mention that in the case of new housing development in our neighborhoods, particularly those neighborhoods that have historic or potentially historic homes, the city planner should be rigorously applying the current zoning ordinances, design guidelines, and general plan. The city planners are too quick to recommend plan development that defeats most of the ordinances and guidelines already in place to protect the character of our neighborhoods, including those that are historic or potentially historic. Those existing ordinances and guidelines are the work of countless hours of deliberation by our volunteer commissioners, as well as interested residents and the general public. Their efforts are vitiated in many instances by city staff recommendations. With that said, my suggestions for improving the zoning ordinances and guidelines to protect historic resources are: 1, explore the restoration of the 200-foot impact distance to historic properties. The current 100-foot impact distance from historical properties in our current historic ordinance is too small. Number 2, add zoning ordinances and design guidelines to take into account the floor and roof elevation differences between buildings, as well as window placement, in order to enhance privacy between housing units and to create visual harmony. 3, update the city's single-family and duplex residential design guidelines and other guidelines and the zoning ordinances to include impacts between new development and existing larger multifamily complexes, particularly the specification of compatible setbacks between and around new developments. Setbacks should mirror those setbacks found in the neighborhood. Measures to mitigate the impact between non-residential land uses and existing homes, such as between housing and strip malls and gas stations, should also be included in the update. Number 4, explore the possibility of the city creating a historic district around the Old Quad in Santa Clara with the intention of alerting property owners of the significance of their buildings, as well as providing information on programs and design guidelines to preserve their properties. This will help the commission to organize their preservation advisory efforts. Number 5, explore historic overlays for streetscapes, especially in the Old Quad. I want to preserve the characteristics of some of the streets via historic overlay. There are few remaining intact streetscapes from the Victorian era. Number 6, update our historic preservation and resource inventory for potential candidates. The city has not conducted a survey of the city for over a decade, and many properties may be eligible for historic status at this time. I will advise the city to hire a licensed architect who specializes in historic preservation or an architectural historian to survey the entire city, at least a windshield survey, and report their findings to the commission for review. Multifamily housing complex should be part of the survey. And lastly, create a city repurposing guidelines for owners of historic buildings or potentially historic buildings to encourage them to repurpose those historic resources rather than demolishing them for new development.
Thank you so much for that very, very detailed answer. I can tell that you really thought about that and did your research. Thank you. Do you feel that some old motels on the El Camino Real have historical significance? What other building structures do you feel have a historical significance?
Yes, the Capri Motel on El Camino Real near my neighborhood, I think should be reviewed for historic significance, particularly for its distinctive sign, building arrangement, and swimming pool. The Western Motel should also be reviewed for historic significance. The vacancy, no vacancy, neon lights on these advertising signs takes one back to a time before cell phones and the internet, when vacationers would arrive in town after a long drive and try to find a place to stay for the night. I think the car wash on El Camino Real, located west of Noble Avenue, is worthy of historic consideration. It appears to be from the mid-century modern period in its design and structure. Its exuberant use of cables and steel columns to support a cantilevered steel roof, as well as its bold use of color. Other buildings and structures I think qualify are some multifamily complexes such as Pomeroy West, another Eichler cluster development by famed California architect Claude Oakland, located across the street from Pomeroy Green, and the Vista del Lago condominium complex on Saratoga Avenue that received many builders awards for its construction and design. I also think the International Swim Center in Central Park may be a first of its kind in the United States and should be reviewed for historic significance. The modern community buildings in our city parks should also be reviewed for historic significance. as well as the modern open-air pavilion picnic area in Central Park designed by Robert Royston, a prominent landscape architect in Northern California. I also recommend that the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility be reviewed. I think it may be historically significant because it is an early type or most significant type of wastewater treatment plant in the state.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Let me ask council members if anyone has a question. Councilmember Becker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ken, for replying. Like your detailed answers. Getting into about long-term commitments, this is a term until 2025. Are you willing to put in the long-term commitment to stay on this commission? Because we've been having a lot of applicants, leave, and we really kind of want to have the consistency on our Historical Landmarks Commission. And I'm wondering if you would have that commitment until 2025.
Yes, I will. What makes it quite advantageous for me is that I am retired. So I do have time to devote to this commission.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Councilmember Jane.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. You clearly did your research. Do you have any thoughts about this concept, demolition by neglect?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not limited to Santa Clara. Yeah, it's always a question, if an owner, it feels that the requirements that the city is putting on them are onerous, they let it run down, and I don't know how that ends up. Everybody points a finger at each other. A good example is that was in the news was the carriage house at the Morse Mansion. And that was unfortunate. That was quite a wonderful historic item that was adjacent to the Morse Mansion. And it was quite decorative, and it was a shame to see that basically fall apart. And I know there was discussion between the HLC and the city and the current owners of the mansion. And frankly, I don't know what to do in those cases, but I'd sure like to spend some time to figure out if there's some solution. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's definitely a topic. It's definitely a concern, and I certainly would like to look into that some more and explore some ideas.
Great, thank you.
Ken, I don't see any other hands, so if you'd like to go ahead and give us your 1-minute closing statement.
Yeah, I'm very interested in serving on this commission. I have a background in architecture, and today I was cycling with my wife around the old quad and bumped into some residents, and they're so proud of their homes, the historic ones. And I know that it's important to a city to know its history. And so this is a very critical commission, and makes it a wonderful place to live, knowing that we care about some of our older buildings. And what's the aphorism that you don't know what your future is unless you know what your past, So I've spent the day reading about some of the historic people in the city that have lived in the city. And we have a very rich history. I don't pretend to know all of it. It's almost bottomless. We're one of the oldest cities, as you know, in the state. So it would be an honor to serve on the commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the wonderful interview. And we are hoping that you stay. We only have one interview before we make a selection. So you're welcome to stay. If you don't, Ken, then someone will contact you tomorrow. But thank you very much for applying and your interest in doing all the research you did to prepare for this interview. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ken.
Our last applicant is Ed Stocks, and we'll be moving him over.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Ed.
Can you hear me?
I Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So
Okay. Welcome, Ed. Thank you for applying. There we can see you now too. Thank you for applying to the Historical Landmarks Commission. As you've probably been hearing, the routine of the day is we'll allow you up to 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you applied for this commission. We have some pre-prepared questions. Hopefully you got them ahead of time that we'd like you to answer, and then some other council questions if there are any, and then a 1-minute closing statement. So whenever you're ready, Ed, we'd love to hear about you.
thank you. So my name is Ed Stokes. I was born in England. I lived there until about 2012. All my time there has been spent in sort of Victorian houses of various constructions. I'm a big fan of older properties, architecture, and antiques. I have a small collection of my own. In 2012, I moved to the United States. I recently became a citizen. So that was something pretty important to us. I have a home in the Old Quad and a historic home on Homestead. And, you know, I've traveled the world a lot, and I feel like I would like to get involved in preserving the homes around here, and that is why I thought I would apply to this and you know, see if you guys were interested in my help.
Okay, wonderful. So we can start with the questions that you were given ahead of time, and so the first one is, what is your favorite story or anecdote about Santa Clara's history?
So I think my favorite part of Santa Clara is just as you walk around, you can see that the homes that are here are the stories of the people that lived here. You know, they came out, they prospected, they maybe had a small business, they maybe had a large business. And as they built their homes, either to a grand scale or a smaller scale, that those homes are still here. And that to me is the best part of Santa Clara, because, you know, I've lived in a lot of cities, and, you know, you see properties that were built, you know, by, let's say, businesses that wish to just maximize the property, or have been modified over the years to the extent where they're no longer showing what they were originally. And so with every unique property here, whether it be a small one or a large one, you can kind of see that there was a family that started there, and that is my answer to the question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And many of our homes in Santa Clara are just over 50 years old. How will you distinguish between what is considered historical and what is just plain old? And I don't know, by England standards, if anything's old over here, everything would look new to you, but tell us what you think about that.
I do have, yeah. Okay, I won't tell you about England because we're not there, but maybe one day over coffee. So, so the difference between, I guess, old and historic is that the historic, you know, is something that you would want to preserve, where it emotes either a past or a memory that you want to keep, and, you know, they often come with large period architectural features. Would be something that would define a property as historic, but also that a historic property might, you know, describe a period of you know, economic growth, or industry, or some period of time that, you know, is an anchor to the city's history, rather than just something that was built to serve a purpose, and the purpose is not a memory that we consider part of our DNA.
Excellent. Do you have any zoning code updates you would like to see to better preserve historic properties?
Not at this time. I'm perhaps a little greener than some of the other applicants tonight. You know, I would maybe investigate if there was any part of the existing Mills Act that could be improved, such as, you know, requiring a certain amount of maintenance to keep things watertight. You know, in England, things get wet, maybe not so much here, but the sun, you know, pounding on the siding or whatever. So maybe mandating, you know, some upkeep of the roof and paint to you know, maintain that property for decay purposes.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for bringing up the Mills Act too. I think that's an important part of the HLC. Do you feel that some old motels on El Camino Real have historical significance? What other building structures do you feel have historical significance in Santa Clara?
I'm smiling because as a Brit, you know, we look across and your 50s architecture with all the neons and the strips is absolutely iconic. But, you know, I'm also aware that, you know, these buildings are, you know, they have to make money and you know, if they're empty, they'll just fail by you know, the surface of not having any funding or any purpose. So, you know, you'd have to consider each one in its surroundings. So, you know, are there neighboring properties that also have that kind of mid-century period? That they maintained a lot of their mid-century architecture, and so you know, it's very difficult to preserve everything, and I feel like on a case-by-case basis, if the building could be repurposed, that would be great. But I'm also aware that, you know, not every building can sit empty as a museum.
Right, right. Okay, let me see if there's council members that have questions. Councilmember Park, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for applying. I'm kind of curious, what led you to buy a historic house in Santa Clara? Just curious what the decision process was.
So I wasn't planning to buy a house, and you know, we saw the house on Redfin, and it just looked fantastic, just absolutely stunning, and we wanted to just, you know, do the open house, stick our nose around, and you know, we came in at 3 o'clock, and it just had, the sun was just right into the kitchen, and they had these giant windows, and it just felt like home straight through the door. It felt amazingly warm, and so, you know, I've lived in a lot of older houses. I understand that they have a lot of structural issues. This particular one, you know, the foundation is good. It's redwood. It's been underpinned, and so all of that had been done to a high standard, and that made me feel that the house was sturdy. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. We put in an offer. I was actually traveling in France, and we put in an offer and ended up buying it at 3 o'clock in the morning from France. But you know, and then since we've moved in, and actually 3 years to the day today, you know, we've been really blown away by the neighbors and the old quad and the residents association. You know, my old place, maybe I wave to my neighbors here. I have a much better relationship with them. We meet up for wine events. We'll be doing the parade of the weekend, and that sense of community has actually emboldened me to apply here.
Thank you very much, and belated welcome to Santa Clara.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jane.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, for applying. Do you have a favorite historic home or building in Santa Clara?
You know what, Councilmember Jane, they all have their own merits, and I don't necessarily have a favorite. I have favorite parts of each one. So I love the Frank Mansion. I think that's beautiful. I love some of the houses where the owners have really worked on the paint and the planting to make it a really beautiful home. And large or small, those are the ones that I like. And I also, maybe we'll talk about this a bit later on, but I also like some of the other periods, not just the Victorian stuff that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Becker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ed, for applying. So my question for you, Ed, is about time commitment, and this being a long-term commitment, seeing that the position goes all the way until 2025. Is this a position that you're willing to commit that time until the year of 2025?
So I did think about this one a lot, actually. You know, I do have a professional job, and I would be carving out time from that. But the reason why I applied is that I thought enough about it and decided, yes, I did want to commit. I did want that hobby or community service outside of, you know, the regular office work. And so yes is the answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Now's the time for your 1 minute closing. Ed, anything else you'd like to leave us with tonight?
So I do believe that America has some amazing architecture. Whilst I've been in houses that are as old as this or older, they do not have the same detail and uniqueness. We had different materials and different mechanizations for assembling construction, brick construction rather than wood construction. I love the fact that you have everything from the late 1800s all the way up to the mid 50s. I'm a huge fan of the ICLA and the neons and the stuff that you guys, perhaps some of you even grew up in, and that would have definitely been my second choice. So I do think that preserving those as well is of extreme value, and something I'm very keen on. And I also I love the mid 30s as well, that kind of Hollywood 30s era, the hacienda style. I just they all speak to me in their own ways, and I'm out of time, but thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Excellent interview. And thank you for your time and for applying to this commission and for your interest and investment in the Old Quad of Santa Clara. We all appreciate that. We really do. So, all right, council, now's the time. We've had our four candidates, city clerk, but the other ones we had some people that had not, that had backed out at I think today, right? So,
Correct.
yeah, just four. Okay.
Lisa, let me know this morning that she withdrew from the process.
Okay.
I did want to mention to the council that Mr. Hohenschelt did reach out to me via email during this last interview, and he apologizes for not being able to be in attendance, but he had an unavoidable emergency and was not able to get to his computer on time. I had sent him an email that he was appointed, and he thanks the council for the appointment and will do his best.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay, so I'm sorry he wasn't able to make it, but I'm glad you were able to tell him the good news for him and for us. So thank you. All right, Assistant City Clerk, could you go over the process for us? Because we have a process for the number of votes that we have, but we need to talk about appointing a commissioner and possibly having an eligibility list, but a short-term eligibility list, because we do have more applications coming out the beginning of next year. Councilmember Hardy, did you have a question? Your hand went up and down.
Mostly, I just wanted to ask if we were going to take into consideration that we'd like to have a runner-up situation.
Yes.
So usually
yes.
2 votes is my thought.
Okay, so Assistant City Clerk, go ahead and tell us the process, and we may want to alter it a little bit to have that eligibility list.
Sure. So
okay, go ahead.
When we have 4 applicants or less, the council would give 1 vote, but the council may alter that a bit, as Councilmember Hardy suggested, perhaps 2 votes, and the one with the highest vote would be appointed, and the second would be the runner-up for to be placed on the eligibility list. I did want to mention that the June 2022 terms that end in 2022, the annual recruitment would begin late February. I did check the roster. We do have 2 incumbents who are eligible to be reappointed to the HLC. It doesn't look like there would be any vacancies at this time, but you never know if any resignations would occur.
So we could do our eligibility list for 6 months. Let's see, where are we? October? Yeah, so that would still be okay if we did the eligibility for 6 months.
If that is the pleasure of the council.
Okay, and just for those applicants or those who may not know the eligibility list, so we would appoint a commissioner and possibly someone on the eligibility list. So if there's any commissioners that resign or step down between now, whatever time period we associate, we usually, I think our policy at this time is 6 months. Then we would if we have one on the eligibility list, then we would bring that one candidate back and hopefully appoint the candidate like we did earlier on the Senior Advisory Commission. So that we don't have to go out for a full recruitment and we keep a full commission. Councilmember Becker, you had a question?
I don't know if this was asked already and maybe I missed it, but can we go more than one person on the eligibility list? Can we do more than one, maybe 2, 3, just so we could, or maybe even 4? No, yeah, 3, sorry, just to have that.
We don't have that many candidates. I mean,
just to have that backup plan.
So yes, we can do whatever we like at this point. I would suggest with if we had 2 votes, maybe the top 3 that come out of that, we do that.
Is it like planning commission was
for the
kind of the
next,
same way?
yes, because just like what happened earlier, we had 2 on the eligibility list and only 1 came forward. It might be the same type of thing. So so maybe the top 3 and eligibility list for 6 months, because there aren't going to be any openings coming up in HLC, possibly if people reapply again that are eligible to have 4 more years. So if that's okay, council, city clerk, we could, assistant city clerk, we could register 2 votes for the applicants. And
we'll take it from there.
let's take, does anybody need a minute or 2 for this? Are we all ready to go? Are we okay? All right. Assistant City Clerk, when you're ready.
Okay, Councilmember Watanabe, please cast 2 votes.
Okay. Thank you, Nora. And again, thank you to everybody who applied. We definitely had a great pool of candidates this evening. I am going to cast my votes for Cecily Cox and the second one for Ed Stocks. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Shahal, please cast your 2 votes.
Thank you. I also appreciate everyone spending some time and coming for the interview. Great interviews, and it's the toughest job of ours is when to pick a few person out of the lot, and when everybody is doing so great. So my 2 votes are Ken Kratz and Ed Stokes.
Thank you. Councilmember Hardy, please cast your 2 votes.
I will say this is hard, and I hope that if someone is not appointed or doesn't make the list, that they still apply again, because I'm excited about this and I used to serve on the HLC. So Cecily Cox and Jim Kraft, please.
Councilmember Park, please cast your 2 votes.
Yes, I would also like to thank all the applicants, and I will vote for Ken Kratz and Ed Stocks.
Councilmember Jane, please cast your 2 votes.
Yes, thank you everyone for applying. I do live in a historic home in the old quad, and this is important to me. I will be voting for Ken Kratz and Ed Stocks.
Thank you. Councilmember Becker, please cast your 2 votes.
Thank you to all the applicants. This is going to be a really hard decision. And like Councilmember Hardy said, please do not be discouraged and continue, because here in Santa Clara, we need people like you. So we appreciate it. But my 2 votes are going to go to Ken Kratz and Cecily Cox.
Okay. And Mayor Gilmore, please cast your 2 votes.
Thank you to everyone that applied. I wish we had a lot of positions open. My 2 votes are going to be for Cecily Cox and Ed Stocks.
Thank you. So right now we have 4 votes for Cecily, 4 votes for Ken Kratz. So there's a tie there. And we have 5 votes for Ed Stocks.
Okay, so do I have a motion to appoint Ed Stocks?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to appoint Ed Stocks for the position. And let me make sure I have this right. for one partial term, starting now and ending June 30th, 2025 to the Historical and Landmarks Commission. Okay, Assistant City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Watanabe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shahal,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Jane,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ed. You had an excellent interview, and welcome to the commission. We're very pleased to have you. May I have a motion to appoint Cecily Cox and Ken Kratz to our eligibility list for
So
the
moved.
Historical and Landmarks Commission?
So moved.
Okay. Is there, who did the second?
Councilmember Becker.
Okay.
Or
All right,
whoever.
so motion by Vice Mayor Chahal, second by Councilmember Becker. Assistant City Clerk?
Councilmember Watanabe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shahal,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Jane,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
May I, just for clarification, this would be to re-invite them to interview.
yes,
Okay,
and
thank you.
right.
And it's for 6 months.
6
right?
months, for the 6 months, yes,
Okay.
correct. For the next 6 months.
Yes, thank you.
And I also want to thank James Kraft. We don't leave you out. Thank you for applying to the commission. I think you all did really well. And we appreciate everyone's time on this and interest in our city. I think that's most importantly. I could really tell by all of your interviews, you're all very passionate about this. And those are the kind of commissioners we really want to see in Santa Clara, those that have a passion for how they're serving. And I know most of us, if not all of us, probably served as commissioners before we were on the city council. And it's really a rewarding experience to be able to serve the city in that respect. So thank you all for applying, and congratulations to Ed. Okay, so is there any other business on that, Assistant City Clerk?
That concludes the interview process.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Nora, and your staff for putting everything together. I know these are never easy to coordinate all of this, especially with all the last minute changes. So I want to give a big thank you to you and your office for putting this all together for us and making a smooth interviews for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, reports of members and special committees. Do we have any? Okay, we have canceled closed session. So that leads us to our adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So be it. Motion.
Motion to adjourn by Becker, second by, who was it? I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
I'll do that.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Chahal. All right, motion second. Assistant City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Watanabe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shahal,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Jane,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously and this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.